My name is Judith Geffner, and I'm going to be the moderator this evening for the Candidates Forum. I would like to start by acknowledging the neighborhood associations that came together this evening and worked really hard to put this on and have the candidates turn out. The neighborhood associations, in addition to CG&A, which is where I represent, are East Village Association, the Smith Park Neighborhood Alliance, Ukrainian Village Neighbors Association, and the Westtown Neighbors Association. And I'm going to now list the names of the individuals on the steering committee who worked with me to put this evening together. And could you please raise your hand so we can acknowledge everybody who worked together on this? Liz, Dan, Andy. There's always one in the crowd. That comes out of the city budget.
No, federal. Not the federal.
Not the federal. No. I'm sorry, Andy. George, Michael, Jim, Sally. So my deep gratitude for everybody. I also want to give an additional thanks to Roots for having us here this evening. And I really appreciate it. It's Restaurant Week, and if anybody knows what Restaurant Week is, it's really crazy. And we had to tear down this room and put it back together again. And just as an FYI, even though our event will be over at 8 o'clock this evening up here, they're closing downstairs at 9 to do a special party for their staff to thank them for Restaurant Week. So guys, drink and eat real quickly after we're done here, okay? I also want to give a shout out to 311, who took my t-shirt.
I did. I'm sorry it was on the mic.
Oh, thank you. So, my t-shirt in the very back room, in the very back table. Please, if you get a chance to stop by and check out the new 311 for the city of Chicago, I would be grateful. And now I would like to begin the evening by introducing Congressman Quigley. Congressman?
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. So I just want to begin the night with an open prayer of thanks that I am not running for anything right now. But I appreciate everybody who goes out there and does it. It's extraordinary. For those of you who haven't done it, it takes something very special in anyone to get out there, pass petitions, and it's tough. It's not for everyone, and whether or not you agree with someone on everything, the fact that they're engaged that much in the democratic process, you got to respect. I don't know why I'm going to begin with this story. Something about recent news. It's a true story. The guy who coined the phrase, "Chicago ain't ready for reform," right? Patty Bowler. True story about Patty Bowler. He used to do business in his bar as an alderman. Awesome, right? You know, if you'd come in and talk to him about a zoning change, he'd meet in his bar. And Patty was very strong about something. He used to look people in the eye and say, "I want you to shake a hand that's never taken a dishonest dollar. Now, I'd like you to meet his friend, Lefty." It's a lot funnier without those news stories. So let me tell you, this is the why you should be motivated to get out there, so I'm speaking to the choir. Tomorrow night, I'm going to the State of the Union and listening to the President of the United States, which ought to give everyone reason to remember why it's important to go out to vote, right? 100 million people stay at home, President Trump wins office. So November, we all made up for that pretty dramatically in the House, and I get to be a chairman. Thank you. This is awesome. And they can stop passing really crappy bills out of the House. So we still have our work cut out for you. Here's the uplifting part of tonight's message. The last time I saw President Obama, my president, at the White House, it was at the holiday party just before he left, and I said, "We miss you already." And he said, "It's going to be okay." And I said, "No, it's not." I think we were both right, though. But I think the lesson is, it's only all right if you're engaged, right? 2.5 years, I feel like I'm doing group therapy when I speak to her. And my sister, who actually does group therapy, tells me that, you know, Mike, people are supposed to feel better when the session is over. This I can't always guarantee. But I started in this business in the early 80s, working for a Chicago alderman, and learned a long time ago that the power structure is mayor, alderman, congressman. More people know, and I get it, who their alderman is. And this candidate forum stresses that. And I can't tell you how important that is. People said, well, and by the way, I ran for alderman and lost by like 82 votes in the primary. And you know what losing teaches you as a candidate? It sucks to lose. So back to the uplifting part of tonight's message. I think what we learned is that when people aren't engaged and they don't feel like they have hope, bad things happen, right? And when they become engaged and involved, it's an ugly process at times, but anything's possible, right? I mean, anything is possible. So you're going to see all kinds of crazy hell in the Democratic caucus, but it's all about the potential that's there for all of us and as a country. And when this is over, this primary and the runoff elections are over, we have to remember that as a neighborhood and a city and a country and a world. And as corny as all that sounds, as divisive as these elections are, we have to get past that when they're over, or we are no better in that regard than the person who occupies the White House. He got there based on divisiveness, pitting one group against another, finding somebody to blame for everything. And it is a world filled with walls and anger, intolerance, and people not listening. So I respect and want to congratulate all the candidates who are here. I wish them the best. And for those who are engaged in the process, working on those campaigns, you know, I want to thank you for that, because it is our hope. Someone said, well, you know, what could you possibly learn from working for an alderman and being engaged running for alderman? I learned this. No matter what I do, what I learned about policy is what every alderman knows better than anyone, and people who are engaged in local government is. If policy doesn't work at the street level, where aldermen are working like crazy to get those services done, then it doesn't matter, right? Whatever we try to do in DC passes down, and I draw resources back. We got $1 billion for the red line. If it's not done right, useless, right? We got to do the blue line. We got to get more buses. We got to get more transit dollars coming here. And it's got to work in all the neighborhoods, and most of all, it's got to work. So, whatever else we do as aldermen, every day I remind myself that it only works if it works with all of you, and all of you at the local level, the most critical level of government, absolutely, in the world. So President Obama was one that was right? It's going to be okay. And it's going to be okay if you're engaged, you're involved, and you continue to care like you're showing tonight. Thank you, everyone. Work hard. God bless.
Thank you, Congressman. So I want to give you the format of the evening, and before I start, I would like to point out, okay, I'm going to be Vanna for 1 minute. I'd like to point out for everybody to see, this is our neighborhood association map. It describes all the different neighborhood associations in different colors, and what you will see when I pass around the clipboard, there are actual copies of that map in the clipboard. So what we're going to ask you to do this evening is we're going to ask you to sign in and indicate what neighborhood association that you're part of, and we'd love to have you more engaged and more active with us. The format for this evening is each candidate will have 4 minutes. I will read to you the question that each of them was given prior to this evening, that each of them is being asked to answer, and we will hold them accountable to answer this one question. At the conclusion, the candidates have committed to sticking around and having coffee with you, except for Congressman Quigley, who appears to be sneaking out. Bye. 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 The candidates have agreed to stick around and have one-off conversations with you. And as I mentioned earlier, we have this room until 8 o'clock, so please feel free to stick around, mingle, and go downstairs, drink, and eat. So, there are 3 city-wide elections. There is a mayoral election, an election for city clerk, and an election for city treasurer. This evening, we have candidates for the city clerk and for city treasurer. We additionally have 3 wards of representative people running for the aldermanic seats of both of the 1st Ward, 2nd Ward, and 26th Ward. Here is the question that every candidate was asked to come up here and answer. What change do you think is necessary, and what is one specific action you will take if elected to make that change, and what impact will it have for our constituents who live in your neighborhoods? So to begin today is going to be Anna Valencia, whose duties include record keeping and transparency and running and the existing city clerk. Anna?
Thank you.
Lucky me, I get to start off. Hello, I'm Anna Valencia, City Clerk of Chicago. I am the 2nd woman and 2nd Latina to hold this position since 1837, and I hope there are a lot more women of color coming after me. I was first in my family to graduate college, University of Illinois. My dad is a union painter, my mom a nonprofit advocate, actually before she lost her job because of Bruce Rauner's budget crisis. Thank God we have a new governor. And you know, as city clerk, I know we do a lot of operational things. You may know about the city stickers and our dog licensing and overseeing city council. But to me, this office is so much more. It's about equity and access. It's about bringing city services and making it more accessible to all Chicago residents. And I think that's everything that we do in the city clerk's office, whether it's the city key, the first municipal ID card and government ID for City of Chicago residents, at the library card, a CTA card, and now a prescription discount card. It's also the first government ID allowed in Illinois, actually, that lets you self-identify your gender. Or is it civic engagement or status women and girls that we're using to uplift other people's voices? Because I believe in the next generation of leaders coming up that we have to listen, because people in the communities know what they need, and we've got to bring the resources there. And I'm very proud of our latest, the Fines, Fees, and Access Collaborative that we launched in November. Because of WBZ and ProPublica's good reporting and community advocates like Kofi, they brought a problem to us that they've been seeing in the city of Chicago. That why we have to, it's important we raise revenue for the city, and we have a lot of challenges to raise revenue for our parks and schools. We cannot do it on the backs of the most vulnerable in our city. And so we're taking a hard look at city stickers, that it's not about people breaking the law, they can't afford them. It's about being in compliance and not collections. And so I'm very proud to say that we were able to work with City Council to pass a 4-month city sticker. So now in August, you will have a 4-month city sticker, a 1-year, and a 2-year. We're also gonna do a forgiveness program for a month to allow people who've gotten so far in debt, they're never gonna get that debt paid off, and the city's never gonna see that revenue. Allow them to come in, wipe their debt, and get them on a 4-month, 1-year, or 2-year city sticker. We also did veteran city stickers to make sure there's no fee for our veterans who've been honorably and generally discharged, because that's a little small thing that we can do, and a lot of our veterans lived on fixed incomes. And now we're also taking a look at all of our policies with a lens of gender and socioeconomics and all of these other things, race, that come into play on our policies. Because as government, it's good to reflect and modernize with times. And so we're looking at city stickers, we're looking at ticketing systems, booths, licensing, all these fees, and making sure that we're doing it in a responsible manner that's going to allow our residents to thrive and not be a barrier for them to get ahead. So I just want to come out tonight and thank you for your support. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to stick around and ask questions. And just ask for your support February 26th. It's my first election. I'm 34 years old. I think the youngest citywide elected. And the funny thing is, When elected, I'll be the senior citywide elected official because there'll be a new mayor and new treasurer. So thank you again, and hope I can have your vote on February 26th.
Thank you, Anna. So, trivia question. When is the mayoral election? When is the city election? February 26th. Oh, she gave it away. Okay, here's another one. When does early voting start out in the communities? February 11th. Oh, we're such an engaged community. Yay. Okay, I'll keep my trivia questions for later. Now I would like to introduce Daniel Laspada, who is running for First Ward Alderman. Daniel? Sure.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. My name is Daniel Laspada. I'm running for Alderman here in the First Ward. For the last 13 years, I've been an advocate and an organizer to make sure everyone can afford a home, because I lived through the desperate alternative of that. I remember watching my dad work into his late 60s, delivering newspapers, working as a night security guard. I remember my mom going back to work in her 60s as a nanny to try to hold on to a home that had become desperately unaffordable to them. And I remember witnessing what that kind of emotional and economic insecurity feels like, and witnessing that for hundreds and thousands of our neighbors. And so that's the fight that I've been involved in. Changing the policies, building the developments that make sure everyone's home is safe, decent, and affordable. But I want to tell you that I have learned a lot over the 2,200 doors that I've knocked on so far in the First Ward through this race, the hundreds of conversations I've had with you guys at your doors. Because when you talk to me and you say to me, I could never afford to move into this neighborhood today, that means that we have a lot of work to do to maintain affordability for everyone in our community. When you say to me, I'm sending my kid to private school because I don't have that trust yet in our public education system, that says to me that we need an alderman who's going to be an advocate and an organizer and a presence in all of our schools to restore the investment that they need and really to restore your faith in those neighborhood schools. And I will say, when you say to me, my wife, my husband is afraid to come home late at night, the carjackings, the armed robberies, they make us feel vulnerable. I feel that vulnerability with you, and I want to make sure that we have the solutions at both ends, that we have responsive, accountable policing, and that we're addressing the root causes of desperation and poverty and violence that are bringing instability to our neighborhood. One thing that we can change in this neighborhood without even any change in legislation is to work towards more inclusive, community-based democratic zoning processes. And I talk about this because I've been to a lot of meetings now in the First Ward where people say, well, it's one thing for us to have this process, but if there's been thousands of dollars of campaign contributions that have traded hands between the developer or zoning attorney to the alderman, well, why should we trust this process? We've got this breakdown in faith that democratic participation really matters. And so there's two things that we do to solve that. One is making sure that I keep the pledge that I made as a candidate, that I would not take campaign contributions from developers. I haven't taken any campaign contributions from zoning attorneys either. And that I work collaboratively with all the organizations in this room and across the First Ward to make sure our processes are deeply inclusive, grounded in the community, and truly democratic. They make sure that we have development in the neighborhood that is rooted in the interests and the values of the community. And that's the movement that we're building too, and what I want to build with all of you over the next 4 years. Because no matter whether you rent or own, whether you've been here for 40 days or for 40 years, we are building a community together, and it takes everyone's voice and values and perspective. So on February 26th, which fortunately for me happens to be my 38th birthday, I'm hoping that I can earn your vote and earn the right to work with you to build the kind of community we all deserve to live in. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I want to share with you that there's a table behind these folks up here against the back wall. And all of the candidates have been offered the opportunity to put any of their information that they have on there. So could you please respectfully stop by this table on your way out and make sure that if there's anything there that is relevant and you would like to grab now, feel free, please, to do that. Now I would like to ask Alderman Moreno, who is running in the first ward. Please. You need to stand back here. Sorry.
That's okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Judith. I want to first thank all the community organizations, East Village Association, Chicago Grand Neighbors Association, who I deal with mainly in my ward, Westtown, Ukrainian Village Neighbors Association, and Scott Weiner, that owns Roots, one of the partners in Roots. Please come back to Roots and buy a beer, buy a meal, buy a Coke. We want to support our independently owned businesses. That's one of the thriving things about our ward in Chicago Avenue. So think about Roots the next time you want to go out and grab a bite. My opponent stole a few things that I wanted to say, but I'm glad he said them. But what I'm not going to do is what I think we're all sort of tired of at the national level and local level, is do the politics of fear. I'm going to talk about the politics of hope, as as President Obama said, and I'm going to talk about the things that you and I have done as a community to build this ward into the place my opponent said is a great place for renters and for owners. Let's talk specifically about our process. I'm so proud Chicago Grand Neighborhood Association is represented here that reviews every single zoning change, small, medium, or large. I don't think we've disagreed, Peter and others are here, on any of the recommendations in the last 4 or 5 years. And in fact, I was very proud to receive an award, and my staff, I got to give it out to my staff, for our involvement in the neighborhood for the Chicago Grand Neighborhood Association, which covers obviously Chicago to Grand, Ashland to Damon. Also with East Village Association, which covers right here, north side of Chicago. My community process is extremely thorough. I think one of the most thorough processes in the city. We deal with 7 different groups throughout the ward. And some aldermen have said to me, well, why don't you just, that's a waste of time, Joe. It's hard to deal with 7 groups. Why don't you create a ward-wide zoning committee review? And why is this as important, guys? I get in the weeds a little bit, but the interests of EVA or CG&A might be different than the first ward that goes all the way to Bloomingdale and Lawndale. They just may be different, not better or worse. The Wicker Park Committee just north of us might have different ideas, so we localize it. Yes, 7 different community groups, they all have their own characteristics and it's more difficult. But I think that you cannot have a more thorough zoning process than that, and I defunct 100% that every single zoning change is not looked at thoroughly, and 90+% of the time I go with what the community recommends. And that's a thorough community review process. I also want to talk about our schools. I mean, gosh, darn it, I'm not going to get upset, but those of you that are here, our schools have done so much great things. J School, Talcott School was the first level 1+ school of 15 schools in the ward. Right here, Talcott. We've put $25 million into Clemente School that got off probation for the first 14 years. And LaSalle 2 parents are visiting there. LaSalle 2, we've put $80 million of your hard-earned taxpayer money into our schools. And the results are this. 9 schools today are at level 1 or level 1+. So the fear-mongering that says our schools are not up to par, go visit the principals. Go visit the local school councils. And you talk to them. And don't just talk, go help them. Join a local school council. I was a member of Jose Di Diego local school council way before I was alderman. Get engaged. It's an opportunity to help, and it's an opportunity to continue the growth of our schools that don't only provide for great education, but help with our safety, and I'll end on safety. This district, the 12th district, leads the city in the reduction of crime and the lowest of crime. That wasn't just because of me, it was because of you because of your involvement and because more police officers that we advocated. The First Ward is a great place to live, work, and play, and I'm glad you're part of it, and I look forward to continuing our mission to make it even better. Thank you very much.
Okay, another piece of trivia. What's the website address to find out where your polling place is? cookcountyclerk.com/service/polling-places. So if you're interested to find out where your polling place is, so that you can early vote starting February 11th, please go online. Now I'd like to introduce, yes?
It's actually the county website. Everyone in the room who's living locally, it's the Board of Elections.
Board of Elections, they can go as well. Chicago, excellent, thank you, thank you. I should like have an award or something for getting trivia questions right. I'm gonna make them harder. I would now like to introduce the candidate who is running for the 2nd Ward, Alderman Brian Hopkins.
Can you stand behind
Sure.
here?
Thank you.
Thank you, because this is being recorded. Thank you.
I do have the luxury of running unopposed, but when that became clear no one filed against me, I made the decision at that point that I was not going to turn down a single invitation for a debate, a forum, any public discussion, even though I don't have someone standing next to me to debate me. I just felt it was important that we continue to have a dialogue and continue to talk about relevant issues. So that's why I'm here. And because I have the luxury of running unopposed, I can just answer the question that was asked and leave it at that. So that's what I'm going to do. The question, as I recall, is what am I going to do in my next term? What's a problem that I want to solve? Okay, well, solve. Let's solve a problem. We should talk about ethics reform. And I want to begin, before I talk about what I intend to do on ethics reform in my upcoming term, I want to state for the record that a little over 3 years ago, I voted in favor of the most comprehensive, extensive ethics reform legislation in the history of the Chicago City Council. Now, there were 2 proposals at that time. And the one I voted for, that statement I just made is true, but there was another proposal that the media and several others felt was better. And we're continuing to have that debate today. But I want to highlight the main difference between those 2 legislative packages back then. One of them included authority for the Inspector General to periodically examine aldermanic offices. The other one did not. That's the one I voted for, and that's the reason I'm taking so much heat today. The Tribune and the Sun-Times both continuously list all the aldermen that voted for the alternative package instead of that one that they preferred. But my idea then, which I'm hoping to get past now that the attention has been refocused on ethics reform, was a mandatory requirement that every aldermanic office and every committee, not just the finance committee, but every committee gets audited as a matter of routine course every year. I supported that 3 years ago. I support it now. We couldn't get it passed 3 years ago. I think we can get it supported now. And the reason is, as an alderman, I welcome that examination. We currently have a citywide audit that takes place every year. A private auditing firm comes in. Currently it's Deloitte, one of the well-respected auditing firms, comes in every year and does a comprehensive audit. They do not look at aldermanic offices. I think that's wrong. They do not look at committee functions. I think that's wrong. In the annual letter of engagement, when we set their fee, it would be a simple matter to tell them, you are now required to audit all 50 aldermen and audit all of the aldermanic committees. It's the right thing to do. Professional auditors would do it without any political agenda, which unfortunately we've seen recently, not this current Inspector General, but previous Inspector Generals have turned out to really be nothing more than political operatives in disguise, and that's wrong too. No one's ever accused any of the major auditing firms in this town of having political agendas, and Deloitte as a firm is beyond reproach. So I firmly support this. I have an ordinance to accomplish it, and I think going forward, it would give all of us as aldermen actually the peace of mind of knowing that our offices will be scrutinized every year, and our committees, regardless of who the committee chair is, will be scrutinized every year. It'll prevent some of the things that have been happening and I see Alderman Moreno is indicating he's going to co-sponsor that. Is that the case, Joe?
I voted for it before.
You voted for it the last time. Yes, thank you. You did. In fairness, you did. So there's a moment right now when we have intense pressure on the City Council to respond. Not every idea that you're going to hear debated in the next couple of months is a good idea, quite frankly. Some of them are just in response to this media feeding frenzy that's taking place right now, people trying to run for political cover. That's not the best way to make policy. The best way to make policy is with more of a dispassionate analysis. My idea was presented back before all these scandals started to break, and I think it has as much merit today as it did back then, so I'm going to try to get this passed in the next 6 months. So thank you very much.
Next, I would like to invite up the 26th Ward candidates, beginning with Alderman Maldonado.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to all of the organizations that helped to put this forum tonight. Especially I want to thank the Smith Park Neighborhood Alliance, the Ukrainian Village Neighborhoods Association, and the West Town Neighbors Association. I also want to be specific to your question. And, you know, the question that I ask, you know, that we have been asked is, what needs change in the 26th Ward? What needs change is to bring about more affordable housing to the 26th Ward. You cannot, it is almost impossible to buy a new home by working families that have lived there for more than 30 years, a whole generation. My commitment will be to build 485 new affordable housing in the next 4 years, and there will be at different levels of development by the end of my next term, should I be reelected and be given the opportunity to serve as your alderman once again. Look, and how would that work? Well, 335 will be along Division Street from Western and Division all the way to California, and 150 new affordable housing on Cortland and Ridgeway. 100% of those units are going to be project-based. What that means is that working families will be able to pay only 30% of their income, and the rest, 70%, will be subsidized. To me, that would be the only way that we are going to be able to bring about economic diversity into the 26th Ward. So, I don't want to see high-rise, high-price condominiums in the 26th Ward. I'd rather see high-rise affordable housing for the working families that really have built the 26th Ward in a place that really has been sick and has been sought by many of the new neighbors who have come into the ward to coexist and live with us. So with that, did I? Okay. So I'm going to be respectful of your time, and I hope that you give me an opportunity for the next 4 years to serve as your alderman and be able for you to experience what an economic diverse community can be. Thank you.
So for the remaining candidates who are in the room, can I point out we have a very important person sitting on this side who's holding up how much time you have left. So again, if you didn't see it when you were up here before, can you please make sure that you kind of look this way, even though I know that camera is right in your sight. But again, if you could please just be respectful to notice they're giving you a 1-minute warning. And now I would like to invite up candidate for 26th Ward Alderman, David Herrera. Could you stand back here, please? Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming out, and I grew up down the street from here, so Part of the email was to give a basic intro. Born and raised in West Town, my family's been here since 1957 when we first moved over on Ashland and Black Hawk, and then since then, my family relocated to Ohio Street down the street from here, and we've been there since the 1960s. We're still on the same street. So I've seen this community change, I've seen it evolve. It is definitely diverse demographically, it's diverse from an income perspective, and we do need to keep it diverse. And my background's in economics and finance. I graduated from Loyola University. From there, I joined the real world of finance, worked in municipal bonds, municipal finance, worked on infrastructure projects, student housing transactions, you name it. I used to do about $1 billion a month in deal flow for about 3 years, from 05 to 08. Worked in private equity, worked for big billion-dollar firms. I think worked for $7 billion firm right out of school, $12 billion firm after that, $3.5 billion firm, etc. So that's the kind of thinking we need at City Hall. The alderman role is a dual role. You've got the local level issues, and we've got a lot of big issues at the city level with our pension, getting our fiscal house in order. And so as far as my policy and my agenda as being alderman of the 26th Ward, I'm a lifelong resident here. My parents have as well been lifelong residents. I'm the only candidate in this race, born and raised in the community. So the agenda for me is really job creation, because we can talk about building affordable housing, but if people don't have jobs, there's no sustainability. What we need sustainable communities. We want a community where people can work, live, and play. Humboldt Park's a 207-acre park, second largest park on the north side of Chicago. It's gorgeous. It's got a boathouse there, bird sanctuary. Part of my policy is to make that Chicago's first technology park. I want more green tech there, solar, wind, sell it back to the city, create a microgrid, and then we can provide free Wi-Fi. The revenue stream from that, we can pay for after-school programs for the youth, athletics. I'm bringing in an after-school program, STEM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. That's what the youth need. I grew up here, and I was fortunate enough. I grew up very, very modest upbringing, middle class. My dad worked at a warehouse on Hubbard Street in Oakley. He'd walk over, take us to the park. And unfortunately, those jobs, a lot of people have been displaced. A lot of those jobs have left the U.S. They've left Chicago. A lot of manufacturing base was in the Midwest, primarily Chicago. We still have the infrastructure here. All the roads come to Chicago. We're still a transit hub globally with the expansion of O'Hare Airport. We've got vacant warehouses. So we need to create empowerment zones in our backyards to create sustainability for people. And so that's my thing. So I'll give you an example as far as an economic empowerment zone. We've got Grand Avenue here. There's a metro stop at Hubbard and Western. And we've got a new Green Line station coming in 2020 on Grand and Lake. I'm gonna loosen up the zoning between Damon and Western. We're gonna provide opportunity we need to retool the new economy for light manufacturing, because right now it's zoned for heavy manufacturing. Those jobs are gone. We're still supply, demand, and logistics economy, just-in-time economy with Amazon products being traded. So that will provide an influx for work-live development on the southern border where they don't want residential. We'll just allow work-live. It'll increase the retail commerce. It'll reduce the blight. It's also a safety issue because the streets are blighted, they're dark, and it invites crime in our community. This community is dubbed the ATM of the West Side. Why? Because a lot of the crime comes in from the south and the west, and we border a warehousing district. And so we need to create more lighting and more density there, and we've got 2 rail hubs right next to it, so that makes perfect sense. That's the first thing I'm gonna do the day I get into office. Is that time?
Yes.
My last thing is a metro hub. We have existing metro rail on North Avenue and Ridgeway. There's 4 TIF districts. The one here in Kinsey has $30 million, and the one on North Avenue, the Pulaski, has $8.5 million. So we could build access to another, that's a transportation desert there, access to downtown as well.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to invite up 26th Ward candidate for Alderman, Teresa Sia.
Well, there's a lot of people here, and I want to thank everybody for coming out. I'm Teresa Sia. I'm running for Alderman of the 26th Ward, and I've been in the community for probably about 8 years. I had a business in the community for a very long time. My son's father was a physician in the community for close to 20 years, and he passed away in 2014 in an unfortunate accident. What the community has done for me was stand behind me 100% to rebuild our clinic. And what I'm giving back to the community is trying to become alderman and speak for them and being their voice for every single person, not just only people just located on Division Street. Our ward is very diverse. It has many people in there, people from the Ukrainian village, from different cultures, Puerto Rican culture, from every single place. We need to make sure that every single person's voice is being heard, and that's what's not happening right now. A lot of people are being pushed out in our neighborhood because we keep saying that affordable housing is coming, and I do not see it. The issue is that we have higher taxes in our neighborhoods. We have a lot of problems, just even like what David Herrera said, like not many people are retail or businesses coming to our community. And we need to fix that because a lot of minorities in our ward are not able to keep their business and be able to keep their business and stay in the community 100%. Because of simple things that our aldermen could actually do, such as helping them with applications to get loans. We're not able to talk to many of our residents because we are not able to get to the residents and understand their needs. That when I become alderman, I want to make sure that we are able to come to each location in the ward, providing people with just simple things such as permit parkings in our alderman office. And that's something that we're not providing. We're not providing basic needs. And that is something that I heard from many of the people in this room. What else are we going to do if we are not able to come together? There's so many people in so many different diverse backgrounds. Nobody on the west end of the ward is being heard. We have very little resources such as after-school programs. Nobody is talking about that, and nobody's understanding that our youth is at a level that they're seeing crime all over the place. Last week, just on Division and Holman, a murder just happened at 8 o'clock in the morning. That is the street that I live down off of. I live on St. Louis and Hirsch. Nobody discussed that. What are we doing for the youth in our community? What I did is I provide $35,000 to Roberto Clemente High School to start their first after-school program for the summer kids. Kept 340 kids off the street for 6 weeks. This is something that I did out of my own pocket with the help of local businesses around Division Street to make sure that our kids are in a productive, safe environment. We shouldn't have just individuals standing up for our youth and making sure that our crime is going down. We should make sure that everybody in the community is involved to make sure that the crime is down and make sure that working families have a place for their kids to go. So this is what I want to do for Alderman. Bring resources, make sure that our crime is going lower, not just only here in Smith Park or in the local communities, because we have a lot of carjacking lately in the area, but also bring affordable housing and saying what is affordable housing and not having high rents in areas that are pushing out long-term residents. So hopefully for February 26th, I could be your alderman.
Thank you. Okay, what big event is happening in 2020 that's not the presidential election?
Census.
The census. Everybody know that the census next year is going to be online. So please, whatever you do, make sure that you complete the census and that you share that message with everybody. Otherwise, we have the potential to lose a congressman or two in Illinois, federal money, and also votes in the Electoral College. Next, I'd like to invite up, next are the candidates for city treasurer. The first person the candidate I would like to bring up is State Rep Melissa Conyers-Irvin.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. As indicated, I am Melissa Conyers-Irvin, currently the state representative of the 10th District. Many of the neighborhood organizations hosting this evening actually take part in the 10th State Representative District. So I'm confident that most of you have seen my face before, because what was very important to me when I became state representative was that I be a voice and that I am representing all communities of the 10th State Representative District. And to be honest with you, when I think about the makeup and diversification of that district, it's a complete replica of the city of Chicago. I represent residents in the most underserved communities to residents in the most affluent communities. And it was important when I went to Springfield that I was a voice for all. I will take that same voice and make certain that I represent all communities as city treasurer. By the way, there is a race for city treasurer in Chicago. We know there's so much focus, for good reason, on the mayoral race, but there's also a race for city treasurer. I was raised by a mother of 3 girls, single mother, first in my family to go to college. When I attended college at Eastern Illinois University, I received my Bachelor's of Science in Finance. At the time, I was the only African-American female in the College of Business. Upon graduation, I spent over 15 years in corporate America. At the same time, went back to get my Master's of Business Administration in Finance. This is important because when we look at the $8 billion portfolio of your money, we want to make certain that someone with the credentials, who has the experience, the financial experience, please may I also add, I am born and raised in Chicago. This is important because I'm invested. I represent all communities, and it's important that we have someone that will be independent and a watchdog of our money. Because guess what? At the end of the day, there's so much uncertainty in Chicago. We need to make certain that there's someone that we can be confident in that will represent us and will watch our dollars and be a protector of our dollars. I am happy to announce that I'm represented and endorsed and supported by many of your local aldermen, as well as the most progressive union in Chicago, Chicago Teachers Union, SEIU Local 73, SEIU Healthcare Illinois, Indiana, AFSCME, Chicago Federation of Labor, Building Trades, Laborers, all because they know that my track record speaks for itself. Please note, with any candidates in this race, that you're looking at someone that has a proven track record, because at the end of the day, we don't have a dime to lose. And we have to make certain that when someone is representing us, that they share our values. So thank you so much, Melissa Conyers-Irvin. And I don't think I even mentioned, because I talked about my credentials, but what I plan to do. We have so many residents in our communities that are banking at currency exchanges. We have so many residents in our communities that have to take loans from payday loan services. We need access to the banking industry because at the end of the day, that is our money. Taxpayers' dollars is sitting in the banking industry, and it is about time that our money worked for us. That's our money, and we want access to it. In addition to that, we talk about affordable housing. When I first purchased my home as a single person, I was able to catch on to an home buyer assistance program. Where are those programs? We need them. As the city treasurer, I will make certain that we foster that relationship with the banking industry and that we have access to affordable housing so that we can have mortgages and we can raise our families. Please know that when I become city treasurer, I will be bold and unapologetic when it comes to fighting for working families. Again, Melissa Conyers-Irvin, please punch 50, and I thank you for your support.
Thank you. The next candidate for city treasurer, Alderman Pawar.
Please stand back behind this table.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me know when I can go.
Yes, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amaya Pawar, and I'm running for city treasurer. I'm currently the alderman of the 47th Ward, and I just wanted to say thank you for having me here tonight, giving me an opportunity to present to you. Why am I running for city treasurer? So I'm going to give you a few sets of data points, and then you decide what you think about what's happening in the economy. The President of the United States will tell you that unemployment is low and that the economy is doing well. Until very recently, in fact, as recently as a couple days ago, he'll tell you how great the markets are doing and how America is great again because the stock market is booming. He'll tell you about how employees are receiving bonuses and how wages have gone up. And then there's the other side of that equation that I experience as alderman of the 47th Ward, and that I've been able to work on issues that impact average people. And that is that 26% of Chicagoans live below the poverty line. 1 in 3 parents can't afford diapers. 95 million Americans live at the poverty line or right above it, which means that they're one paycheck away, or one job loss, or one medical bill away from utter financial disaster. And then here's the other set of data that I think you should also know. is that the federal government recently passed a $1.2 trillion tax cut. The primary beneficiaries of that, 35% of that, were foreign sovereign wealth funds. And what do foreign sovereign wealth funds do? $400 billion of our treasure went to foreign sovereign wealth funds. They invest in things like, they take earnings from oil or revenues that they generate from natural resources, and then they invest it in our markets. A country takes their wealth and invests it in our markets, and then pays for programs in their country, like universal basic income, like Medicaid or healthcare for all, and affordable housing. We literally are willing to bankroll and provide tax cuts for other countries to finance things that somehow are too radical here today. So what I'm telling you is that the data that everyone talks about how everything's great doesn't match up to where people actually are. And I've spent the last almost 8 years in city council working on things like raising the minimum wage, guaranteeing paid sick leave, combating wage theft. And the thing is, those things are great, but those are just basic human dignities. It's not moving the needle. It's not addressing income inequality in any real way. So what does that mean in terms of the treasure, and why try to make a difference from there? Well, the investments we make are a reflection of our values. And our values should be reflected in the investments we make. So when we invest in a company out of our portfolio, whether it's our pension funds or city dollars, it's not just an investment that you look at a spreadsheet that's up 4% one quarter and down 2% another. They're ownership positions that we take. And if we invest in companies like Foxconn that take billions of dollars from taxpayers in exchange for what are supposed to be jobs, and then they take water from Lake Michigan and then push it back in, those are our values. So where do we want to invest? How do we want to invest? And I have the experience in city council working on social policy, and now it's time to take that to scale and actually address income inequality in a real way. And that means launching a public bank, taking on and refinancing student loans, reinvesting in affordable housing, investing in our communities, and going big and using our $7 billion investment portfolio to work for us. There are activist investors out there like the Koch brothers or Carl Icahn or even their former governor Bruce Rauner who use their billions to shape what happens in the boardroom, which reflects in public policy. And all I'm suggesting is we have our billions. Where do you want to put those dollars? And so I'm running for city treasurer because it's time to go big on income inequality. I have experience in city council working on these issues, and I'm asking you to join this effort, join this movement, so we can actually start addressing the issues related to disinvestment and inequality in our city. Thank you so much.
So I want to share with you that we are streaming live on Facebook, and we are being taped for CAN TV, which will be shown on Thursday. My thanks to everybody for that work. I would now like to invite a candidate for city treasurer, Peter Garapi.
Thank you. And thank you for pronouncing my name correctly. So normally when your name is not phonetically spelled, you need something that it rhymes with. Mine rhymes with therapy. So Garapi Therapy. My wife and I, we used to live on one end of the first ward, now we live in the other, but still proud first ward residents, and I used to be the treasurer for the Westtown SSA, as well as the East Village Association, so it's really a pleasure to be back. Now the city treasurer's office. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm a CPA for a living. I do taxes for family-owned businesses, for individuals, and anyone in here right now who can tell me that the city of Chicago's financial health is fine, please raise your hand, because I have a bridge to sell you. We are in a tremendously perilous situation. Our gross debt is $42 billion. That's bigger than Detroit's ever was. Our pension deficit is $28 billion. In 4 years, 18% of all the city's spending is not going to schools, is not going to first responders or infrastructure, it's going to pensions. People love to talk about TIF reform. Right now we put $1 billion in annually to our pensions. If we put every single TIF dollar that was most recently reported in 2017, that's $660 million on top of that billion. We are still $497 million short by 2023. I hope you're all scared. Because when I sit down and talk to one of my clients and their business is going through a rough time, I don't tell them, hey, go into something that you have no business being in. There's a lot of crazy ideas that have come up in this race, and anyone who makes you a promise without a path, that's hollow. I'm going to be very honest with you about a public bank. Name me any other city in the country that has a public bank. In our country, you do not have the authority to create a bank if you're a city. And I promise I'm not making this up. Check the Federal Reserve or the FDIC. There is one public bank in this country. It was created 100 years ago in North Dakota. Not a single 1 cent. Great ideas tend to have siblings. Here's the truth. I think we should look at a public bank, and there's a bill in Springfield. It's been there since 2015, HB 107. Spread the risk over the entire state of Illinois. Do not concentrate it in Chicago. To open a public bank will cost at least $4 billion, taxpayer dollars. That's either going to come from higher taxes and fees or cuts. One of the proposals to finance that public bank, you know where that money's coming from? Where do we have that $28 billion hole? Pensions, police officers, firefighters, municipal employees, laborers. That's where they are proposing that we liquidate these public employee pensions and put that money into a bank whose deposits are not guaranteed. The federal government's not guaranteeing them, neither is the state of Illinois. You know who is? The taxpayers of Chicago. Every single one in this room. And you know what? Because I'm an accountant and I get a kick out of this in a sick way, this is my property tax bill. This is going up. The mayor and the treasurer have more power to raise your taxes faster than anyone else. The treasurer oversees an $8 billion portfolio. Right now, it returns $150 million annually. Every single one of those dollars does not have to come from you. If we open a bank and we increase our liability by liquidating the funds that those people have earned for a living, and now we're on the hook, tell me if you think your taxes are going up. So I want you to think very, very, very carefully. As I said, I'm not here to sugarcoat it, because I have clients, and if they walk in and I say, everything's great. If your doctor says, hey, everything's great, well, I don't feel good, I've got $42 billion in debt. I want you to think very, very, very carefully. Do you want a licensed professional, a CPA, overseeing your dollars? Because one of us will be the next city treasurer of Chicago. And the day after the election, it's just us and your money. I want you to think very, very, very carefully about who is overseeing that, how developed and well-researched their plans are for your livelihood and the future of the city of Chicago. Thank you.
So we've come to the conclusion of our program. And my hope is that you'll stick around, because the folks that are running for office, the candidates, are going to be here to be able to answer questions and address them. We have this room upstairs until 8 o'clock, and then you are invited to go downstairs and order and drink and eat and support the work of Roots. My thanks again to the committee for putting this together and for the different neighborhood associations that work to make this event. Thank you.